Absolutely beautiful day. Just out on the bike. Look at that crystal clear blue sky. Absolutely beautiful. Last year the farmer had cattle on one side of this field and then corn on the cob growing on the other, which I really liked because cattle and corn on the cob to me are just quintessential kind of imagery of summer when I'm out in rural areas. It's one of my favourite things to see on farmland, corn on the cob and cattle, but this year unfortunately they haven't. They're growing different stuff and I haven't got any livestock on here. I kind of like feeling that the village could sustain itself because it's surrounded by farmland on all sides pretty much, so I do like it when they've got a lot of cattle about, sheep, pigs, cows, and then you know, it's like corn on the cob and that. I think that the village could be self-sufficient if necessary, if we end up in a Jericho type situation. Hey everyone, it's a beautiful day, so I've come out for a bike ride. Thought I'd bring you guys along and just have a natter, show you some of the scenery around here. Also, since it's been a while, I might show you my bicycle kit as well, and what I keep on me on the bike at all times. Now first I've got this kind of mini saddle bag at the front here, just under the handlebars up here, and in one side of this I've got this bicycle toolkit. Now in here I've got a Swiss Army knife in there, just a very basic one. Then I've got things for straightening the spokes and changing the tyre, prying the tyre off, puncture repair kit in there, the glue, and various different spanners and things there, kind of tools, and a lighter in there as well. Then on the other side of that I've got this, which is another bicycle repair kit, but it's got various different spanners, Allen keys, some screwdrivers on there. So that pretty much covers all the bases for if I need to do any repairs on the go, which I have had to do numerous times over the years, especially going cross country on sort of gravelly tracks and that, and get punctures. I've had the chain come off, various things like that. Things have needed tightening, the seat, the handlebars can get a bit loose sometimes over time, so it's handy to have those things in there. And of course here I've got a bottle of water that I can easily access as I'm cycling along, and a pump for the tyres that just clips in there. Then on the main saddlebags here I've got two big pouches on the side which I just use to put either a packed lunch or my camping gear if I'm going out for the night. But the kit I actually keep on the bicycle at all times is in this smaller pouch here. I've got the first aid kit, just a very basic one, plasters in there, some antiseptic wipes, some tablets there for, you know, just simple pain relief tablets really, some bandages, a little pair of scissors there as well. So just to handle minor scrapes really. I like to keep some spare tissue paper in there. I've got this emergency whistle, which, I mean, these were everywhere a few years ago. I don't see them about so much now, but there was kind of a craze, there was a bit of a trend for them where any cheap shop you went in, any pound shop, like any bargain store would have these for 50p or a pound. So I bought tons of them, well, a dozen or so anyway, that I keep about in different kits. And one I keep here, it's got a paracord, which I actually put that on there. It had a cheaper kind of string in there, so you can put it around your neck if you like, but I put some paracord on there. It's a pretty good whistle. And it's a waterproof container, and I do test them and it is waterproof. And you open it up and it's full of matches that I've put in there. I've also put a striker in there to light the matches with. And then on top there's a compass, which does actually work. Yep, that is working. So these are really, if you can find them now cheap, I'd get them for the sake of 50p or a pound. Emergency foil blanket for if anyone gets seriously injured. If I come across anyone who's really hurt and needs that while they're waiting for an ambulance, I always keep one of these in the car as well. Some hand sanitizer. Now I have always kept stocks of hand sanitizer. I always keep one in the car as part of my EDC, and I keep one on the bike as one of my EDC. I always just have it when I'm camping. It's just good to stay hygienic, you know, keeping your hands clean. And I think now more than ever, people are becoming more and more sort of hyper aware of germs everywhere, and how important it is to keep the hands clean, because you're constantly touching your face. If you think of all the door handles and things you touch when you're out and about that hundreds of other people have touched. And in fact, I heard something about, one study showed that about 1 million deaths a year could be spared if people just practiced good hygiene, washing their hands better, because it would stop the spread of infections and things. So that's a handy thing if you can get hold of it nowadays to keep in there. A rain mac that I got free with a magazine. It rains while I'm out, to keep me a little bit dry. Bite and sting relief, very important in the summer, I find, at least anyway, because they love me. You get these in Poundland, you can get like 2 for £1, quite handy, little pen size spray. And then in here I've got some fire lighting stuff, a bit of bicycle in a tube, and just some simple fire lighters. Once again, you can get packs of these for out of Poundland. Obviously for £1 you get like loads of them in a pack, and they're handy to have sprinkled about for if you need to light a fire for the cold, or to cook food on, boil water. And then just a clear plastic pouch if I come across any berries that I want to pick, or for water gathering even you could use that. And on the back of these bags there are 2 more pouches for water bottles. I've only got 1 spare with me today, that's all I needed. You can put a kind of 750ml bottle in. They fit in there quite well, and it's got a drawstring at the top to hold them in, so you can carry 3 bottles of water basically. I mean, you could put more in other pouches if you wanted, but there are 3 specific places for water bottles on this, which if you're going out for a long time on a hot summer's day like this, you really want with you. And then on this side I've got a extra light here that I can turn on at night if I want, as well as the light on the back of the bike, which is connected to a dynamo. This is a battery one too. It's nice having the dynamo as a backup just in case the batteries run out. And then in here I've got some bicycle gloves. They're just handy in general, having some fingerless gloves, I find. Also I've got my car keys in there. There's another tyre puncture repair thing. This is like you have in cars now, where they don't have spare tyres anymore. They have a bigger can of this stuff that you spray into the tyre to fill it up enough to get you home. They're actually pretty handy to have, because I have had a bicycle pump fail on me before. It was a good pump, but I'd had it a long time. It was pretty old, and it just, part of it broke, so it wouldn't hold on, and I wasn't able to inflate the tyre, and I didn't have one of these back then, so I had to go home on a flat tyre, and it buckled the wheel. So having this as a backup to the pump, because the pump's a really important thing when you're cycling. Being able to reinflate the tyre is very important. So I think a redundancy of things to inflate your tyres with if you get a puncture is a good idea. You know, it's the old 2 is 1, 1 is none philosophy. I also like to keep a little fold-out trowel in here. Once again, this is something out of Poundland. I bought a few of these because these are really handy things to have. Depends what you can do though. I mean, a lot of people probably wouldn't have much of a use for this, but I tend to find I'm often digging around for various reasons. So it's kind of a handy little thing to have in there. And then I've got these 4 pegs, which are for a ground sheet, which I'll show you in a minute, that I have in the top pouch, just to hold that into the ground if I want to have a sit down. And then a bit of metal here that I just bent to use to get these out of the ground, because once these are completely in the ground, they can actually be quite difficult to get out. So having something that you can just latch in there to pull them out with is quite handy. So yeah, I just got a bit of metal and bent it to use an old tent peg there. And then in the top pouch here, I like to keep a ground sheet. Once again, something out of Poundland. Get some handy stuff out of there. This is handy, one, if you want to just have a lay down somewhere and you don't want ants crawling all over you. Just put a little ground sheet down if you're having a picnic or something. But also, if you wanted to, you could use this with the paracord that I have on that emergency whistle to put a shelter up if it was raining, or you just wanted some shelter from the sun or something. So That's quite a handy thing to have. And if I really wanted to, I could spend a night out on what I've got here. And then on the handlebars I've got a little flashlight which just clips in there. Really handy little thing this, you put on the handlebar, you clip that down to put your torch in, your flashlight, and then that swivels around. It holds it in there nice and tight too, so you can just put any old regular flashlight in there and use as a bicycle light. Because I find that a lot of actual proper, you know, bicycle lights designed to put on your bicycle aren't anywhere near as good as these kind of flashlights. So being able to clip one of those on there, really great at night. And there's just the dynamo there, you know, you put that on and off however you like. Sometimes this can be a bit annoying because it does have a habit of just kind of flipping on there if I go over a bump, and then have to kind of reach down trying to get it off. I wish it would click a bit better out like that when I don't want it on. But it's nice having a dynamo as a backup light. The lights aren't that bright with it, but just in case the batteries run out or just the electronics go wrong for whatever reason in the other lights I've got, it is nice having a backup that I don't have to worry about batteries for. The Elegant Traveller, that's me. Designed by Nick Gozy. Ooh. Anyone have any idea who he is? Never heard of him. It's only an Amoco bike. They've got a bit of a reputation as just being a bit cheaper, I think. But I've had this since 2013 and I've very rarely had any problems with it, really. The odd things here and there I've had to tighten up. You know, the chains come off once or twice, things like that. But kind of things that happen with any bicycle. And I've used this a lot over the years. I actually salvaged this because I used to work for a bicycle shop for a few years who would collect old bikes people didn't want anymore and from the local dump and that, and fix them up and sell. And I kind of claimed this one for myself and fixed it up myself, and yes, it served me really well over the years. So that's my setup. I mean, you know me, I can't just go out for a nice leisurely bike ride with just a bottle of water and a mobile phone. But then I go a long way and into some very isolated forestry and countryside, so it's the same as if you go hiking anywhere like that. You want to make sure you've got some decent amounts of water with you, first aid kit, something to call for help if you can't get a signal on your phone, just basic stuff like that. And you know, for a bicycle you want to have a repair kit, so I don't think I'm too over the top with what I've got on here. Would it really have been that hard to have just put that in the car and taken it home to put in the wheelie bin? Fucking assholes. Well, hello everyone. Just out on a bike ride to get a bit of exercise because I haven't really been exercising much lately, not as much as I should do. So I've definitely noticed I'm kind of not necessarily putting on weight, but putting on fat, because I think the muscle mass is shrinking and then the fat mass is rising. So I'm actually the same weight, but I think it's just the muscles being replaced with fat. So I better get out and get a bit of cardio in, get some vitamin D, burn off some calories. But might move on in a bit. If I sit here too long, then mosquitoes will descend upon me before long, but at the minute it's not too bad. But I'm actually back out at the camp I built a few weeks ago, a month or so ago. I was thinking of having just a permanent camp here, but I think if I have one set up in just one place, it's more likely to be discovered by other people. So I probably won't use this one too much, but every now and then it's nice to come back here. I've got the options of different places I can stop. Yeah, it's a beautiful day. I wish I could record actually cycling, you know, actually going on the ride itself, but whenever I've tried that, the footage is just far too blurry from the bumps in the road and that it just looks terrible, so there's no point in me uploading it really. Just be a blurry mess. But I thought I'd have a natter with you guys while I'm out here. It's nice to just share it with people. Just my thoughts on things as well, really. I suppose a bit of a video diary maybe, but you know, I think now that things have calmed down a bit in the world, it is, well, I say calmed down, I mean in terms of the pandemic, I'd definitely advise everyone start Oh, then mosquitoes are on me already. I'd definitely advise everyone to start preparing for the next wave. And not just that, I mean, things have just been going crazy this year. We've got growing sort of civil unrest and riots and things, the pandemic itself, the knock-on effects on the economy. And this has been brewing for a while now, because really for the last sort of 4 or 5 years, the political spectrum's so 50-50 in America and England at least. You know, you look at the Brexit vote and the American elections, both were very close, you know, almost 50-50. And when you've got that much of an equal divide in society, of like 50% of the population are always going to be unhappy, so it's always going to cause a lot of unrest, because there's just no unity. It's not like if sort of 70-80% of people felt one way, then that's one thing, but when it's almost 50-50, yeah, it was inevitably going to cause problems, and I think we're going to see that increasing over time. We're also apparently on the verge of the next mass extinction event, which won't necessarily affect humans directly, but it's going to affect a lot of animal life, and probably in no small part because of us. You know, global warming seems to be a hot button issue as well, and you know, different people have different beliefs on that. I do think that we are accelerating it. I think it's kind of impossible really to imagine all the crap that we churn out into the world isn't having some effect, all this crap that shouldn't be there. So you know, there's a lot of things to worry about at the minute, and it's I think it's easy when people think about preparing for an apocalypse and that, you kind of think it's going to be like in the movies where it all happens overnight, you wake up in the morning and zombies are everywhere or something, but these things happen gradually, so you've got time to prepare, especially now. Like I say, things have calmed down a bit, you can start stocking up on food, not panic buying, not going crazy, but I'd definitely start stocking up, and not just on food either, but on other things. Tools. How many people I know now don't have tools in the house? You know, you can buy it, like for 50 quid, you can buy a pretty complete toolkit. You know, just have hammer, screwdriver, pliers in the house, so you can make simple fixes yourself without having to call anyone in if the services aren't there, or you're worried about someone coming in and bringing in a virus, if you're worried about the pandemic. You know, something to filter water with. It's one thing stocking bottles of water, but if you can filter rainwater, collect and filter rainwater. And gardens as well. God, the amount of people now that just pave over their gardens. And for me, I always think that your garden is your own little piece of nature that you kind of own. You know, you can have flowers there and attract birds and insects, have a pond to attract frogs and things, and have all this wildlife and all this beauty there. And people just pave them over with paving slabs and stones, and it's such a waste. You know, I'd get ploughing that up and growing stuff in there. And yeah, you're not going to be able to sustain yourself completely for a whole year on just what you can grow in your garden. It'd be nigh on impossible unless you've got a decent amount of land, but it still helps. It's still going to provide you with a bit more than you're going to have to buy, so you're saving money and saving trips to the shops or whatever. And another thing that I think is actually really important as part of bugging in preps, and I touched upon this a little bit in my pandemic lockdown sort of vlog video I did a few months ago, is physical media like books and DVDs. Because especially now, there seems to be a growing censorship of things on these streaming services. And I've never really been a fan of these streaming services anyway, because you're basically renting off of them. They won't let you just, well, a lot of them won't let you just straight download a book, download a movie. You have to have their app to read the book on, or listen to the audiobook on, or watch the movie on. So they basically own it still. You're just renting it. And I just don't like that. I've never been a renter. I like to actually own things. You know, I'd rather have a cheap suit that I own than a flashy tux that I'm renting. Same with a car. You know, that's just me in general. But with this growing censorship, if you're just streaming things, it's going to be censored. It can be taken off whenever they feel like it, or edited however they feel like it. I think it's really important now more than ever that people start buying physical media again. You know, DVDs and books. And because it's good for your mental health as well. If there's a lockdown again, and you can't go out doing things to entertain yourself, if you've got a library of books and movies, that's going to really help you to get through that and to distract yourself and to occupy yourself. I think it's really good for mental health, and just, as I say, in general, because I'm really against censorship. So many things that I enjoy have been subject to censorship over the years, even before I was born. Like back in the 1950s, it was horror comic books were sort of destroyed and burnt because there was this hysteria over them. And then there was censorship of, even like Batman comics came under censorship because they were worried that Batman and Robin would encourage gayness. And silly things like that. You know, in the 80s it was horror movies in the UK, the video nasties all got banned. In the 90s it was like video games and rock music and pornography. All these things are always quickly targeted and censored and banned outright, and it basically turns into a book burning situation, which is never a good thing. But we're getting into that hysteria again at the minute, and it's just laziness, really. It's a simplistic answer, which isn't really an answer. It's just people, you know, what can you do if when people get hysterical about something? We'll find an easy target to blame. Horror movies, yeah, we'll destroy all the horror movies and there won't be any psychopaths and murderers anymore. You know, pornography, yeah, we'll get rid of pornography and no one will be a rapist anymore. Censor old movies and no one will be a racist anymore. It's just ridiculous. And time again, history has found that it is ridiculous. There's really been little to no evidence that that ever works and that these things are ever really related. I mean, especially the whole 1950s comic book thing, you look back at that and you just laugh to think, wow, they really thought there would be like roaming gangs of comic book nerds raping and pillaging through the land if they hadn't have destroyed all these comic books, rather than actually saying, well, maybe we should look at the parents and the upbringing, society in general. No, it's horror comic books and Batman comics. Oh, God, it's just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, so that's kind of my rant on physical media, and I'm a fan of physical media anyway. I just like having books and DVDs on display. I think it kind of reflects who you are. If when I go to people's homes and I can look at their collection of things, their books, DVDs, whatever, it just sort of gives you a little taste of who they are, rather than when I go to someone's house and there's just like a screen and a chair, basically. It is very bland. But you know, everyone's different, but I've always been a big fan of physical media like that. So I think that is more important than maybe people think about in terms of home preps. You know, food, water, a garden to grow fruit and veg, books, DVDs, tools, and some exercise equipment as well. Even just something as simple as a bicycle to go out, you know, something to do if you can get to open spaces without having to come into contact with people. If you know you're worried about the pandemic, a bicycle is really good for exercise and just for mental health, once again getting you out without having to worry about wasting money you maybe don't have on petrol. And a pull-up bar is something that you can get pretty cheap, and just that one bar that you can put up and take down as you use it, you can get, you know, a reasonably good bit of upper body exercise from a pull-up bar. So it doesn't have to be anything too extreme, but they're just things to think about having at home to get you through if you are bugged in again in some kind of lockdown. I mean, you never know how much the media are hyping it up, because I know with a lot of things I see in the media that seem ridiculous and you think, oh my God, actually out in the real world, when you're coming into contact with people, no one cares. It's like the whole, you know, you hear a lot in media now about universities that have safe spaces and they ban clapping and you have to do jazz hands instead because there's, you know, two people maybe who don't like clapping for some reason, and silly things like that, and you think, oh my God, the world's gone mad. But actually out in the real world, I very rarely come into contact with anyone who actually agrees with all that and thinks it's sensible. So, you know, maybe these things are the minority. It's just the media hypes it all up to get views, to get clicks. But from what you see on the news at the minute, and over the last few years even, you know, things are definitely changing at least, and that is going to be problematic here. So, even though the pandemic's been the big one to remind people and make people think about preparing, I think there are other things going on as well. That's, you know, now more than ever really, it's a good idea to just become a bit more self-sufficient. Not necessarily preparing for the apocalypse, the end of the world, but I think self-sufficiency is going to be really important in the coming few years. Moved on a bit because it's getting a bit dark there where the sun was moving around through the trees, so a bit more out in the open here now. Been quite a few deer about. when I was sitting quietly earlier on. One came quite close, but as soon as I moved to get the camera, it noticed me and ran away. And then there was one that ran out in front of me, but once again, by the time I've got the camera out, turned it on, tried to focus, you know, it's long gone. So I haven't been able to capture any of it. Even with the squirrels as well, there was a really lovely looking half red, half grey squirrel. He was kind of grey on the sides and red along the back. But yeah, he was gone long before I could get the camera out to film him. It's a shame, because I do love seeing the wildlife, and I'd love to be able to get some of it on camera. Boy, am I tired now. I've been out for hours. I've been cycling a few times this year, but not too much really, only like 5 times now. And this is definitely the furthest I've been. Oh man, I'm tired. I'm going to sleep well tonight. It's nice though, that when you're that really physically exhausted, it can be really lovely. You get a really lovely night's sleep from that. But yeah, I stopped here now because I want to take a look at this Y food. I got sent these by the company to look at and feature in my videos. But I'm going to be honest about what I think about this. And they're basically designed. It's a meal in a bottle. And they're really designed more for people who are on the go a lot, who are, you know, busy day on Wall Street, you haven't got time to get a proper meal, so you're stopping in Greggs, getting fast food and junk food, and this is like proper nutrition in a bottle apparently. But I mean, seriously, a lot of people now don't seem to have time to prepare proper meals for themselves, and they are constantly living off of like Greggs and junk food. So this isn't a bad idea really. Ben and Noel, I guess, I don't know if that means anything to anyone, but that's their name on this. I guess they're the people behind it. The next generation of nutrition. So I'm not going to go too into detail about this now. I'm going to actually take a couple of these next time I go camping and see how well they sustain me, see if I feel full with them and if they give me the energy I need without any other food, because that's basically the idea of this, that it is a meal in a bottle. But I brought one out today to try as well. This is fresh berry. The other ones they sent me, I've got a banana, vanilla, chocolate and coffee. Coffee one will be one to try. Not so sure about that, but we'll see what they taste like. But I mean, for me, and I guess for a lot of you guys, this is more going to be something you're going to think about putting in your preps, because the use by date on this is May next year, so that's about a year these will store, which isn't too bad for having as part of your preps at home. And it could be handy for taking out camping or having in a bug out bag, because it's a simple meal. It's simple just having it in a bottle for storage and for carrying. But like I say, I'm gonna test these out on another day, but right now I'm gonna see what this tastes like. Yeah, this is the fresh berry one. It's quite nice. Could do it being refrigerated a bit maybe, because it's been in my bag for a few hours now in the heat. But it tastes quite nice. It just tastes like a regular milkshake. But we'll have a look at a bit of the nutritional details on this. These are ½ litre bottles, and if you look at the nutrition here, energy, you've got 2096. Fats, which are saturates, it's 22. Carbohydrates, 39. Fibre, 7.5. Protein, 34. That's not too bad, assuming that's grams. Vitamins A, D, E, K, C, thiamine, whatever the hell that is, niacin, vitamin B6, folic acid, vitamin B12, biotin, pantothenic acid. So quite a lot in these. Minerals, potassium, chloride, calcium, magnesium, iron, zinc. There's a lot crammed into these. Iodine. So, I mean, from reading that, I'm not necessarily an expert on nutrition. I'm sorry, this is ridiculously out of focus. But, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot packed in there. But really the proof will be in the pudding when I'm actually using this on a camp out overnight, just living off of these, to see how much energy they give me, how full they make me feel. Sorry about the sound of traffic in the background, but I'm quite near a main road here, which is a shame because this is my favourite outdoor space where I am now. It's absolutely beautiful around here, but you've got a main road just there and an American air base about 5-10 miles down the road, and come midday they're just roaring overhead. So there tends to be a lot of noise pollution here, but I mean, it's just so lovely here. Absolutely love it here. But to continue a thread I kind of touched upon earlier about the whole safe space thing and just that kind of mentality in general. Like I say, maybe it's all just sensationalised by the media, but it's something I've sort of seen more of over the last few years, mentioned here and there, and I kind of think mollycoddling people too much like that, it's really not doing them any favours. And of course you've got to have a balance where you don't want to be a complete arsehole about against people who have got mental health issues and insecurities. I mean, we all do, some more than others, but there's a difference between being sympathetic towards that sort of thing and just completely modelling people to the point where they're never going to grow or strengthen. And I just don't know how people are going to develop coping mechanisms. You know, younger people now who are given safe spaces to run off to at university. Well, out in the real world, no one gives a shit, mate. There are no safe spaces other than your own home. So at some point you've got to learn to just accept other people's opinions are going to be different to yours. Except that some people are idiots, some people are dicks. You know, you don't have to take notice of them, you just ignore them and avoid them. It's the best way. You can't sort of change other people, and you shouldn't really try too hard because you can be on a hide into nothing. You know, just excise those people from your life as much as possible. Don't sort of stress about it and feel you need to, you know, have a safe space everywhere you go. And the same with the whole clapping and jazz hands thing. Like, if you can't handle clapping, what are you going to do out in the real world when there's the noise of traffic, like we've got here, or planes flying over, or construction sites, or roadworks? You can't expect the whole world to accommodate you and your issues, and that's not to belittle people's issues, but you can't be so self-absorbed that you think the whole world should revolve around your problems. At some point you have to deal with them yourself and then become stronger, and it's no wonder there are rising rates of depression in young people, because they're not developing coping mechanisms. How can you expect someone who's been given a safe space and has had everyone banned from clapping around them to then go out into the real world and be able to handle real problems that come up in their lives? They're not going to be able to. They've got no coping mechanisms that they've developed. So I think we're really doing a disservice to people with this overly modelling attitude towards people's problems now that we have. I don't know why it always has to be one extreme or the other. You know, you can be nice and care about people's problems and help them without being overly modelling and just sort of pandering almost to everyone's tiny weakness and insecurity. How neurotic a kid's going to grow up to be if they're taught that even just using the wrong pronoun is like a crime, like it's worrying themselves silly over what pronoun to use towards someone. Like, out in the real world no one cares. I have very rarely, and I've met a lot of people over the last few years, maybe one or two are kind of this way inclined, but the vast majority of people do not care what pronoun you want to be called or about safe spaces and things like this. So these people are going to get hit hard when they go out into the real world outside of university. And when I was a kid, we were taught, you know, sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never hurt you. Whereas now it seems to be the opposite. Now they're taught, no, God, if anyone offends you, you know, run off to the police about it, tell a parent. It's ridiculous. Same with the whole boy who cried wolf. I guess they don't teach that in schools anymore, because the amount of people now, the second that anyone has a differing opinion to them, oh, you're a sexist, you're a racist. Well, those words are going to lose all meaning the more you just throw them at people. You know, Nazi, that's you know, calling each other's Nazis and that because they've got differing opinions to each other. It's just absurd. And once again, it then loses all meaning if you actually say that too often. People aren't gonna listen. You know, it's the boy who cried wolf. Man, it's such a shame that the traffic noise is constantly here. It's like the perfect bit of woodland. There's this perfect mixture of different types of trees and plants here that I really like. Such variety. It kind of reminds me of North America and that kind of woodland, but then there's just the constant noise of traffic. But anyway, I'm going to get going now. I've got a true crime podcast to listen to. If you're into true crime, I'm going to plug my other channel. I've got a channel called Dark Woods. There's only 6 or 7 videos on there. I need to get some better editing software really and a better microphone to do the videos justice. But you know, the videos in terms of my editing might not be very good, but the stories I think are really interesting that I've covered. So if you're interested in true crime, I've got that channel you can check out. I'll put a link in the description of this video. So it's been a bit of a meandering kind of video really, and I haven't had anything specific to as a topic. It's just putting some of my thoughts out there. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about the stuff I've spoken about, 'cause it's stuff that I've heard here and there, and I don't like getting too much into politics and social issues in videos really. I don't sort of get too much into negativity and that, but it's just stuff that's sort of been processing in my mind and that, so I thought it'd be interesting to see what other people think of it all. And yeah, give the old Y-Food a plug as well, since they sent me some samples. I'm a shill! So thanks for watching everyone, and I'll catch you again soon.